You have rook takes a6 and a rook takes
Oh, and there's
g2,
a
rook a2
backdoor
check.
skewer at the
There's a
end.
backdoor skewer. Very nice. Very nice. But
Amazing. Phenomenal. Look at this,
mm, mm,
everybody.
mm.
Alright, so we're rewinding to 2017. It's the Speed Chess Championship final between Magnus Carlsen and the Hikaru Nakamura of old. Not the same man he is today with the confidence he plays with when he plays Magnus Carlsen these days. Now, Magnus in this match left Hikaru traumatized, and this game is a great example of that and also features this nasty but beautiful endgame trick that we're going to see on the board, plus the full reaction. So let's check out this game. Carlsen's got white and he kicks off here. Sorry, Hikaru's got white and he kicks off here with pawn b3. Knight f6 from Magnus. We get these opening moves and Magnus goes for this kind of King's Indian defense setup. d4, and now here Magnus goes wrong on just move 5. He goes c5, Hikaru takes, queen a5 check, the pawn blocks, and now you can't pick up this pawn. Eric Hansen talks about this trick in the commentary studio because now if you go bishop a3, the queen has to go somewhere. You drop this pawn, so not only is white a pawn up, but the pawn structure is a bit nasty. 3 islands, just worse for black. So instead, Magnus, he doesn't take the pawn, he just retreats his queen to c7, accepting that Hikaru can now go b4. Yes, Magnus is still a pawn down, but at least this pawn structure's a bit more intact. So already, Hikaru's up. How can he now put the pressure on? Well, Magnus, he now goes b6. Really thematic idea to rip open the A and C lines here, bring his heavies, try and pressure these pawns, and c4 from Hikaru. In the words of Yasser, push 'em baby, right? You have to get your pass pawns rolling. Okay, this isn't a pass pawn, but it's an extra pawn. Anyway, he opens up the bishop, Magnus develops his, we get knight b to d2, rook d8, a3, both players now developing, and after rook c1, d6, queen b3, Magnus now offers a pawn structure change with this knight to e5 move. But Hikaru wisely does not take it for a couple reasons. One, you're moving a piece twice in the opening before you're developed. You know, you haven't yet gone bishop e2 and castles. You've just opened up this bishop on that diagonal. And two, you're now opening the d file. Black starts getting some initiative, right? So not the way to go. Instead, after knight e5, we get bishop e2. Completing development, very solid. Let's castle the king. So bishop c6 from Magnus. Weird looking move, but he's headed for a4 as we'll see. Castles, bishop a4, queen a2, and Magnus now hops the knight back. And he's trying to induce Hikaru here to go b5 too soon. You know, it looks nice to trap that bishop in jail, secure the c6 square, but if you do it too soon, you give up c5 to the knight. So instead, knight d4 played, good move. We get this rook now coming to the c file, that's where the action's taking place, and knight b1, Hikaru is now looking to spin round and pressure this piece. Knight e5 played, pressuring this pawn, but Hikaru ignores with knight c3. You can't capture here, or the knight will take here, open up the rook, you know, you're dropping a piece. So we get bishop d7, now knight d5, wonderful outpost, and again, you don't want to capture, change the pawn structure, because that will be in white's favour. Big clamp on the c6 square, plus this pawn will be backward and difficult to liberate, not what you want. So queen d8 played, it was attacked by the knight. It also covers this pawn which was undefended. We get queen b3 and now pawn h5 from Magnus. Quite a typical idea when you've got this structure, well, with the pawn on h7. It does weaken the king a bit, but sometimes you run it all the way down, and if you can induce g3, well, that could be quite nice for black. You get some squares here for the knights and that kind of thing. So knight f6 check played, the bishop recaptures, knight b5 now from Hikaru, again an instructive moment. Why not chop it off? Why not double the pawns? Well, it's an unfavourable pawn structure. Here's a sample line. The bishop now is coming into this diagonal as well to support the rook. You know, you've got this outpost, the rooks are doubling, really, really bad. b6 is weak here as well, not what you want. So bishop takes on b5, not good. Bishop e6 played instead. more pressure on this pawn. So we get knight d4 back, the bishop drops, bit of cat and mouse, but Hikaru's not going for repetition, he's a pawn up, so he goes pawn f4, drives back this pony, well forward to start with, now he drives it back. Knight h6, ugly square, a knight on the rim is dim, and after bishop f3 we can really see Magnus now getting sliced to shreds. Down that diagonal, on the c6 square, his rooks are ugly. Now the computer wants to go rook a7 immediately, but Magnus chucks in bishop a4. It gives white some extra advantage here, but I think this is a really nice randomizer, because now after the queen goes, now Magnus goes rook a7 and b5 is played. The bishop is in jail, the c6 square is under control, looks horrendous, right? But watch this just insane play from Magnus. So he starts with bishop f5, knight f5. So he's putting up resistance, but just finding these tricky ideas, forcing Hikaru to think. The time's ticking down. This is 3 minutes plus 1 second increment. Now, if you go knight c6, which you want to play, fork these two pieces, it is actually the best move. It was what the computer most wants. But you've got an unprotected bishop, so this needed calculating. What about after rook takes? Well, then white has to take here, and actually as black, you don't take back, or then you're losing your rook. So best is to move the rook. White saves the bishop, and white's still a decent advantage here. Bishop pair, this one's in jail, extra pawn, g4 could be coming, that kind of thing, advantage white. It was the way to go to hop with knight c6, but Hikaru got a bit spooked. He went g4, just trying to keep a lid on all the tactics, force some piece exchanges. He's still a pawn up, right? This is a monster square. This is in jail. The rooks are kind of locked out. But again, just brilliant play from Magnus. He cracks open the centre now with pawn to e5. He has to generate counterplay. He's positionally lost in the long term. Now Hikaru does again go wrong. Top computer move is to take there, but he retreats his bishop. Magnus now takes here, pawn recaptures, he liquidates a pair of bishops, and now queen f6 is just a nasty move. This pawn is undefended, and the queen x-rays, well not x-rays, directly targets the rook. This one x-rays the rook through the c-pawn, and so there's now a threat in the air of bishop takes on b5, pawn recaptures, and your rook drops. So Hikaru goes bishop c6, blocks the file, covers these squares here, and opens the rook to defend the pawn. Looks great, right? But now rook e7 from Magnus. That rook, which had to make this dire kind of one step up the board, going nowhere, suddenly swings, and now it could be joining the party. Because after queen d2, looking at some dark squared protection, this is exactly what Magnus does with the brilliant move of rook to e2, finding counterplay. And now the queen captures that one. It is the best move. I mean, you can go queen d3 here, the computer says, but trying to live with a rook on your second rank, is huge trouble. So the queen captures. Now the black queen takes here, and look at this counterplay from Magnus. Just insane. This one's attacked. This king has got all this kind of vacuum in front of it now. King g7 could be on the cards. Rook h8. Just nasty stuff. Now Hikaru should go f5 here, look for counterplay against the black king, but he goes rook f3, hitting the queen, covering this pawn, but now look at this, queen d4 check, the king goes, and bishop d1. One absolutely nasty move. How has that bishop escaped from its jail, landing on the starting square of the white queen and skewering these pieces? I mean, it's just bonkers. The queen moves away. Now, you don't have time to take, or you're losing your queen. If you take here, rook takes, okay, white's okay. But what Magnus can do is keep the queens on and snap off a pawn. Would you believe it? The material has just been restored, and Hikaru is now on the back foot. He goes rook g3. His rook was attacked. We get king g7. Here comes the cannon, joining the party. King back to g1, rook h8, and now g5 from Hikaru. For the first time in the game, the eval bar goes in Magnus's favour, because rook h4, great precision from the world champion as he was at the time. He now hits this pawn here, and this is just getting nasty for white. The king is not safe. Now Hikaru, with his king being so exposed, low on time, he wants to liquidate down. Technically best was taking here, but that is not an easy move to play. You know, leave this one hanging. The whole defense though hangs around the bishop, coming back to g2 to defend. Anyway, Hikaru goes for this check and queen swap. Very understandable. He's thinking, I've messed this up. Let's get into an endgame, liquidate. I'll attack this bishop. It drops. I'll win a pawn. Should be a draw. But no, this is not a draw because you go rook g4 with check. If it wasn't with check, you know, say the king was somewhere else or whatever, then black would have time for this, cover some pawns and everything. But it is check. The bishop blocks. The pawn drops. And this one's dropping off too. So after takes, we get this one dropping off the board, king f2, bishop d7 back, and this endgame is big trouble for Hikaru. Because yes, he's got an outside pass pawn, but he's only got the one. Magnus has got two, and they're connected, and his king is able to shepherd that one. Now, Hikaru goes rook b7, and it's actually an instant blunder, which both players missed in the time scramble. Now, if you want to pause and look for the blunder, please do so. So the move that could have been played here but wasn't was rook takes here. King recaptures, you simply lose to that skewer, right? Game over. So you couldn't even recapture, you know, it just resigns. So coming back here, it wasn't played. Magnus goes bishop e6, and it's understandable he missed it. He was just laser focused on the plan to execute. You know, he can play this end game like in his sleep, right? He just knows where to put the pieces. So he checks, brings the rook behind the pawn, and now starts pushing his own pawns. They march all the way down, and here comes the king. Just brutal technique. Now the g-pawn runs with check, king e2, f5, the rook f6 forces the bishop to move, but after bishop c4 check, king moves away. Here is where Magnus finds a filthy endgame trick. I'll show you the full clip of that in just a moment. But again, if you want to pause, look for the best move, then please do so. So, Magnus plays the brutal bishop takes on a6. Now, I've added the double exclam there to indicate, well, it's a great move, but also the final move of the game. Now, why is this winning? Well, let's first examine rook takes. This one's simple enough to understand. You trade the rooks and the pawn runs through, makes a queen, that's game over. So if we come back here, what if bishop takes? Well, now you can push this pawn to g2, you're threatening to make a queen, so rook g6, and now this is the really beautiful part. You take off this bishop here, and if the rook captures here, you make a queen, no good, and if the rook takes the pawn, this is the best part, the most nice part of the combination. What a terrible sentence. Rook a2 check. You finish off with a skewer to pick up that rook. Classic endgame tactic, and that's how the game would end. So after this move of bishop a6 here, this is where we saw resignation, and this is the clip of the commentary reaction.
You have rook takes a6 and rook takes g2, rook a2 check.
Skewer at the end.
There's a backdoor skewer. Very nice.
Amazing. Very nice. Phenomenal. Look at this, everybody.
What a game of chess, and if you want to see another epic game, check out the video on screen and do smash that like button if you enjoyed, really helps me out, and don't forget to subscribe to never miss a future video. I hope to see you again soon, and thanks for watching.